September 13th, 1987. Two scrap metal scavengers break through the rusted fence of an abandoned medical clinic in Goiânia, Brazil. Roberto dos Santos Alves and Wagner Mota Pereira drag a heavy metal cylinder from the debris. It weighs nearly a ton. Inside, something glows with an eerie blue light. They have no idea they've just stolen one of the most dangerous objects on Earth. The cylinder contains 50.9 terabecquerels of cesium-137, enough radioactivity to kill dozens of people, enough to contaminate an entire city. The machine was a teletherapy unit, designed to fight cancer with controlled radiation. But abandoned and unsecured, it becomes a weapon of mass destruction. Before we dive in, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. The Instituto Goiano de Radiotherapy had moved locations 2 years earlier. They left behind their most dangerous equipment: no security, no warning signs, no notification to nuclear authorities. Just a metal box containing the radioactive equivalent of a small nuclear bomb, sitting in an empty building. The scavengers don't understand what they found. They see valuable scrap metal. They see that strange, beautiful glow. They think they've struck gold. They're about to unleash Brazil's worst nuclear disaster. Roberto and Wagner load the cylinder onto a wheelbarrow. They push it through the streets of Goiânia, past homes and shops, past children playing in the dirt. Every step spreads invisible contamination. Every breath brings them closer to death. At the junkyard, they attack the cylinder with hammers and screwdrivers. They want to crack it open. They want to see what's making that mesmerizing blue light. The metal is thick, the work is hard, but they keep pounding. On September 18th, the cylinder finally breaks. A blue-white powder spills onto the ground. It glows like something from another world. The powder is cesium chloride. At 1 meter distance, it delivers 4.56 gray of radiation per hour. Standing next to it for 1 hour would deliver a lethal dose. But they don't know that. They think it's beautiful. Junkyard owner, Dever Alves Ferreira, takes handfuls of the glowing powder. He shows it to friends and family. He spreads it on his skin like carnival paint. His 6-year-old niece, Leida das Neves Ferreira, plays with the sparkling dust. She eats a sandwich with contaminated hands. The powder gets tracked through the junkyard. It sticks to shoes and clothing. It spreads to cars and buses. Grain by grain, the cesium-137 begins its journey through Goiânia, a city of 1 million people, about to become a radioactive wasteland. Within days, the first symptoms appear: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. The victims think they have food poisoning, or maybe the flu. They go to local clinics. Doctors prescribe rest and fluids. No one suspects radiation poisoning. But the glowing powder keeps spreading. Dever gives fragments to relatives in other neighborhoods. Children collect the pretty blue dust in bottles. It contaminates playgrounds and schools. It infiltrates the food chain. By September 29th, dozens of people are severely ill. The blue glow has been seen across 7 different locations in the city. 7 focal points of contamination, each one capable of delivering deadly doses of radiation. The accident has been underway for more than 2 weeks, but nobody knows it yet. Not until a visiting physicist named Dr. Paulo Roberto Montanha walks into the city health department with a handheld radiation detector. He's investigating reports of mysterious illnesses. The device starts clicking, then chirping, then screaming. The readings are off the charts. Dr. Paulo Roberto Montanha stares at his scintillation counter in disbelief. The needle pegs at maximum. The device is designed to detect trace amounts of radiation. What it's reading should be impossible in a civilian setting, but the readings are real. September 29th, 1987. 29 days after the theft, the physicist contacts federal authorities immediately. Within hours, teams from Brazil's National Nuclear Energy Commission arrive in Goiânia. They bring sophisticated detection equipment. They bring hazmat suits. They bring growing horror at what they discover. The contamination is everywhere. Helicopter surveys cover 67 square kilometers of urban Goiânia in just 2 days. Car-mounted detectors scan over 2,000 kilometers of roads. 80% of the city's transportation network shows traces of radioactive contamination. At the junkyard where it all began, radiation levels reach 400 millisieverts per hour at 1 meter distance. That's more than 600 times the daily exposure limit for cleanup workers. Standing in that spot for 4 hours would deliver a lethal dose. But the junkyard isn't the worst location. At the Vigilância Sanitária courtyard, where some of the powder was taken for testing, Readings hit 400 millisieverts per hour. At the house where the capsule was first opened, surface hotspots measure 1.5 sieverts per hour. Some areas show radiation levels so high they exceed instrument capability. The authorities find one previously unknown contamination site. The reading at 1 meter distance, 21 millisieverts per hour. Enough to exceed annual safety limits in less than 2 days. September 30th. Olympic Stadium is converted into a mass screening centre. Lines of terrified residents stretch for blocks. Parents clutch children. Elderly couples support each other. Everyone wants to know the same thing. Am I going to die? 112,000 people will be monitored over the next 3 months. That's more than 10% of Goiânia's entire population. Each person passes through radiation detectors. Each person waits for results that could change their life forever. 249 people test positive for contamination. The victims range from infants to elderly adults. They include the scrap dealers who broke open the capsule, the junkyard owner's family, children who played with the glowing powder, cleanup workers who tried to help, bus drivers who unknowingly transported contaminated passengers. 20 people require immediate hospital treatment. Their radiation exposure is so severe they need specialized care. 14 are transferred to Hospital Naval Marcílio Dias in Rio de Janeiro. It's Brazil's most advanced nuclear medicine facility. But even there, doctors struggle with injuries they've never seen before. The patients arrive with radiation burns covering their bodies. Some have lesions so contaminated they register 15 millisieverts per hour on contact. Their urine shows radioactivity levels up to 30 megabecquerels per litre. That's 30 million nuclear disintegrations per second flowing through their kidneys. Doctors administer Prussian blue, a compound that helps the body eliminate radioactive cesium. The treatment requires 3 grams per day or more. Patients take handfuls of blue pills, hoping to flush the poison from their systems before it kills them. But for some, it's already too late. The cesium-137 has lodged in their bone marrow. It's destroying the cells that produce blood. Their immune systems are collapsing, their bodies are shutting down from the inside. October 23rd. 6-year-old Lyda das Neves Ferreira dies in Rio de Janeiro. Her estimated whole-body dose exceeds 6 Gray. That's enough radiation to kill most adults. For a small child, it's devastating. The same day, her aunt Maria Gabriela Ferreira succumbs to her injuries. She's 37 years old. Her dose is estimated at 4.5 Gray. October 27th. Israel Batista dos Santos, one of the original scrap dealers, dies in Goiânia. He's 22 years old. The blue powder he helped liberate has claimed his life. October 28th. Admilson Alves de Souza becomes the 4th fatality. He's 18 years old. All 4 victims die within 6 weeks of exposure. All 4 were killed by a substance they thought was beautiful. But death is only part of the story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're watching from today, and if this story hits you, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. The contamination spreads far beyond Goiânia's borders. Scrap metal from the junkyard had been sold to dealers in other cities. Traces of cesium-137 turn up in Osasco, Araras, and São Carlos. The radioactive trail stretches across multiple states. Every truck that carried contaminated metal becomes a vector for contamination. Every road they traveled needs to be surveyed. Every stop they made could harbor deadly residue. Meanwhile, panic grips Goiânia itself. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some residents flee the city entirely. Others refuse to leave their homes. Hotels in neighboring towns refuse guests from Goiânia. Airlines cancel flights. The city becomes a radioactive pariah, but the real crisis is just beginning. October 26th, 1987. A funeral procession winds through Goiânia toward the city cemetery. 2 small coffins, lined with lead, carry the bodies of Lyda das Neves, Ferreira, and Maria Gabriela Ferreira. The caskets weigh over a ton each. Even in death, the victims remain radioactive. Thousands of protesters block the cemetery gates. They fear contamination. They fear their families' graves will be poisoned. They fear the dead will contaminate the living. Police in riot gear escort the hearses through angry crowds. The burial becomes a symbol of everything wrong with the response. The bodies are finally interred in a special section, isolated from other graves. Concrete barriers surround the plot. Warning signs mark the contaminated earth. Even the cemetery groundskeepers need radiation training. But burying the dead is the easy part. Cleaning up the living city proves far more complex. 85 homes show significant contamination. 41 families are evacuated immediately. They're given temporary housing, but no timeline for return. Some will never see their homes again. 7 residences are demolished entirely. The contamination is too severe for cleanup. Bulldozers level the structures while workers in protective suits spray down the debris. Every piece of rubble becomes radioactive waste. The cleanup generates 3,500 cubic meters of contaminated material. That's enough to fill 46 tractor trailers. It includes clothing, furniture, appliances, toys, personal photographs. Entire lives reduced to radioactive trash. Workers pack the waste into 3,800 metal drums and 1,400 metal boxes. Each container must be labelled, catalogued, and tracked. Between October 25th and December 19th, 275 truckloads move the waste to temporary storage facilities. The operation requires unprecedented coordination. Brazil's National Nuclear Energy Commission leads the effort. The Institute for Radiation Protection and Dosimetry provides technical expertise. International consultants arrive from the United States, France, and other countries. But the work is dangerous beyond measure. Cleanup workers face daily radiation limits of 1.5 millisieverts, weekly limits of 5 millisieverts, monthly limits of 15 millisieverts. These are already elevated emergency protocols. Normal occupational limits would make the cleanup impossible. Yet, in the most contaminated areas, workers exceed daily limits in minutes. Hotspots measuring over 1 sievert per hour are more than 600 times the acceptable daily dose. Workers rotate in shifts measured in seconds, not hours. They wear full protective equipment, lead-lined suits, respirators, dosimeters that alarm when exposure limits are reached. Some areas are so dangerous that remote-controlled equipment must be used instead of human workers. The decontamination process is methodical and ruthless. Teams strip buildings down to bare concrete and metal. They remove flooring, wallpaper, ceiling tiles. They sandblast contaminated surfaces. They apply chemical washes designed to bind radioactive particles. Nothing can be saved if it shows even trace contamination. A child's teddy bear, a family photo, a wedding dress, all become radioactive waste if the detectors register activity. The psychological toll equals the physical danger. Families watch their possessions destroyed. Children ask why they can't go home. Parents struggle to explain invisible danger to confused kids. Some residents develop radiophobia. They refuse to eat local food. They won't touch anything from Goiânia. They scrub their skin until it bleeds, trying to wash away contamination that isn't there. Others deny the danger entirely. They return to evacuated areas without protection. They refuse medical monitoring. They accuse authorities of exaggerating the crisis for political gain. The city splits into factions: those who trust the scientists, those who trust their own experience, those caught between fear and denial, unsure what to believe. Meanwhile, the contamination keeps spreading in unexpected ways. Pets carry radioactive particles on their fur. Laundry hung outside picks up airborne contamination. Rain washes cesium from rooftops into storm drains. Sewage treatment plants detect elevated radiation levels. Water supplies require constant monitoring. Food markets need regular testing. The entire infrastructure of daily life becomes suspect. By December, authorities believe they've identified all major contamination sites. They've cleared the most dangerous hotspots. They've established monitoring protocols for ongoing surveillance. But questions remain unanswered. How much cesium-137 is still unaccounted for? How many people receive dangerous doses before the discovery? How long will elevated cancer rates persist in the affected population? The immediate crisis may be contained, but the long-term consequences are just beginning. And in Brazil's courts, a different kind of battle is about to begin. Who will be held responsible for Brazil's worst nuclear disaster? Who will pay for the damage? And how will the country prevent this from happening again? The answers will take years to emerge, but the victims can't wait that long. February 11th, 1988. The state of Goiás creates the Fundação Lida das Neves Ferreira. Named after the 6-year-old girl who died playing with radioactive powder, the foundation provides ongoing medical care for radiation victims. It's an admission that the crisis is far from over. The survivors need lifelong monitoring, cancer screenings, psychological support, treatment for radiation-induced illnesses that may not appear for decades. But establishing the foundation is easier than establishing justice. Criminal investigations begin immediately after the discovery. Prosecutors examine every decision that led to the disaster: the abandoned clinic, the unsecured radioactive source, the delayed emergency response. Someone must be held accountable. The Instituto Goiano de Radiotherapia had moved locations in late 1985. They left behind their cesium-137 teletherapy unit without proper decommissioning, without notifying nuclear authorities, without any security measures whatsoever. This violation of licensing conditions was clear and documented, but proving criminal intent proves more difficult. The clinic's operators claim they plan to retrieve the equipment later. They argue that moving the heavy teletherapy unit would have been prohibitively expensive. They insist the facility was supposed to remain secure until proper disposal could be arranged. But the building was abandoned for nearly 2 years. The fence was rusted and broken. Homeless people had been living in the ruins. Local children played in the debris. The supposed security was non-existent. Roberto dos Santos Alves and Wagner Mota Pereira, the scrap dealers who broke into the clinic, faced charges for theft and reckless endangerment. But they're also victims. Both men suffer severe radiation injuries. Roberto dies before trial. Wagner lives but requires ongoing medical treatment. Prosecutors struggle with the complexity of radiation law. Criminal statutes weren't designed for nuclear accidents. Civil liability provisions are unclear. International law offers little guidance for domestic disasters. The case drags through Brazilian courts for years. Appeals and counter-appeals delay resolution. Witnesses die from radiation exposure. Evidence degrades. Memories fade. Justice moves slowly, while suffering continues. December 24th, 1996. Nearly a decade after the disaster, federal law 9425 grants lifetime special pensions to recognized victims. The legislation acknowledges government responsibility for the inadequate regulatory framework, but compensation comes with conditions. Recipients must prove their exposure levels. They must submit to ongoing medical monitoring. They must accept that their suffering will be managed, not eliminated. Some victims reject the settlement. They demand full compensation for lost property, for destroyed businesses, for the stigma of being radiation survivors, for lives forever changed by invisible contamination. Others accept whatever help they can get. Medical bills pile up, cancer treatments drain savings, families break apart under the stress of chronic illness and economic hardship. The international nuclear community watches closely. The Goiânia accident becomes a case study in regulatory failure. The International Atomic Energy Agency publishes detailed reports. Safety protocols are revised worldwide. The source itself came from Oak Ridge National Laboratory around 1970. It was part of America's Atoms for Peace program, designed to spread nuclear technology for medical and research purposes. The irony is bitter. A device meant to heal becomes an instrument of death. In the mid-1990s, a permanent repository opens near Abadia de Goiás. The 3,500 cubic meters of radioactive waste finally have a home. Concrete bunkers hold the contaminated debris. Monitoring systems track radiation levels. Security guards patrol the perimeter. The repository will remain dangerous for centuries. Cesium-137 has a half-life of 30 years. The waste won't return to background radiation levels for 300 years. 10 generations will inherit responsibility for Goiânia's contaminated legacy. But physical containment doesn't heal psychological wounds. Survivors form support groups. They share stories of discrimination and fear. Hotels that refused their business. Employers who fired them. Friends who stopped visiting. The radiation may fade, but the social stigma endures. Children born to exposed parents face additional challenges. Are they at higher cancer risk? Will they pass genetic damage to their own children? Medical science offers probabilities, not certainties. Families live with perpetual uncertainty. The Goiânia accident receives a level 5 rating on the International Nuclear Event Scale. That's accident with wider consequences. Only Chernobyl and Fukushima rank higher. It remains the worst radiological disaster in the Western Hemisphere, but perhaps the most chilling aspect isn't the scale of the disaster, it's how easily it could happen again. Thousands of radioactive sources exist in medical facilities worldwide. Many are poorly secured, some are abandoned when facilities close, others are sold without proper documentation. The black market for radioactive material thrives despite international controls. Terror groups actively seek radioactive material for dirty bombs. Criminal organizations sell nuclear waste to the highest bidder. Regulatory oversight remains inconsistent across borders. The next Goiânia could happen anywhere. The blue glow that fascinated those first scrap dealers was probably caused by ionized air around the cesium source. Not Cherenkov radiation, as some accounts suggest, just excited atoms releasing photons in the darkness. Beautiful and deadly in equal measure. That glow has faded now. The cesium has been contained. The victims have been buried or pensioned. The waste has been stored. Goiânia has returned to normal, or something resembling it. But normal is fragile. Normal depends on vigilance. Normal requires that we learn from disasters instead of forgetting them. The next time someone finds a glowing object in an abandoned building, will they remember Goiânia? Will they call authorities instead of taking it home? Will regulatory systems catch the danger before it spreads? The answers matter, because somewhere in the world, another radioactive source sits unsecured. Another facility stands abandoned. Another accident waits to happen. The only question is whether we'll be ready when it does. Remember Lyda das Neves Ferreira. Remember the blue glow that killed her. Remember that some discoveries are too dangerous to make twice. If this story opened your eyes to the invisible dangers around us, hit that subscribe button. Help us keep telling the stories that matter, because the next disaster could be anywhere, including where you live.